The SEC made it obvious in the SEC versus Docwin case yesterday that they believe Judge Torres made a mistake in the Ripple SEC case, and many people believe that the SEC will seriously try to modify her choice in this video. I'd like to explain what some of the most knowledgeable lawyers on Twitter are saying about this. The SEC attempted to modify the Ripple verdict, and if they succeed, they will have no recourse. In this video, Judge Torres declares that XRFP is not a security threat. Can they go to court to persuade him to change his mind? I'd like to explain everything and tell you what folks like Jeremy Hogan and John Deaton have to say about it. It's going to be a tremendous problem. I also want to give you guys an idea of when this might happen, so stay for the entire show. So to start this video, I just want to give you a little synopsis of what's going on in the SEC against Docwin case and explain how Ripple got engaged in it, because many individuals are most likely looking at this and wondering how Ripple got embroiled in this completely unrelated matter. So, in the SEC's quant case, the SEC argues that Docwin sold unregistered shares. So to defend himself, Docwin brought up the Ripple case and said, hey, see, Ripple was able to sell crypto assets as non-securities, so I should have been able to do the same. The SEC responded to this argument by saying that the SDC staff is thinking about the different auctions and plans to suggest that the SEC look into this further. They also stated that they believe Judge Torres made the wrong decision. The SEC is making a strong point here. Many people assumed that this meant the SEC would appeal the Ripple verdict. People say that SEC will now be allowed to go back and obtain a ruling on a security concern, so I'd like to quickly ask whether that makes sense and what the timeline would be for this. But first, I'd like to show you what Jeremy Hogan said about this because I believe it's essential. According to Jeremy Hogan, Ripple and the SEC are going through numerous things that couldn't be decided in summary judgment right now. He stated that the SEC's only option against Ripple heading into a resolution meeting is to file an appeal, which they will, of course, do. I don't think one line can be taken too far in either regard, but Jeremy Hogan makes an interesting point right here. Right now, the SEC is getting ready to talk to Ripple about a deal Ripple just kicked their behind on. They need as much power as possible in court. Right now, the SEC's only real leverage over Ripple is to appeal Judge Torres' ruling, whether or not the SEC wants to risk taking this to the Second Circuit. One thing is certain, they must use whatever power they have. It's also evident that Ripple doesn't want this case to drag on much longer, and they want to learn more about XRP. This matter needs to be resolved so that they can begin working in the United States and assisting institutions in changing their payment systems. Thus, the SEC must utilize its authority to persuade Ripple that they are serious about appealing. The SEC will have a higher chance of prevailing when they start talking about a settlement, since all they'll have to do is negotiate with Ripple and say, okay, if you don't give us this. This will result in an appeal. They must now find a middle ground if they are to reach an accord. However, Jeremy Hogan makes a significant point here. In the Docwin case, the SEC will not say, oh, you're right. In the Ripple case, the judge made the correct decision. I guess you have some nice ideas, but EC didn't have any. They couldn't confess that Ripple was selling crypto assets, since the whole case would have been damaged if they had to tell the judge that he was wrong. So what would they say next if they had to tell the judge that he was wrong? I honestly didn't have anything else to say, and I don't think anyone can grasp what the SDC is thinking about this issue, even if they do wish to appeal. But I believe Jeremy Hogan hit the nail on the head here. They had to announce they were going to appeal it because it helps them in their settlement discussions with Ripple, and two, it's the one they have to this Docwin case. I can't say the court did a good job. This dies their case. They must explain why they disagree with the judge, thus whether they truly want to appeal this ruling or are simply stating they will but will not. I believe the issue here is that it's also difficult to read. A lot of thought into it because a lot of what you may be seeing here is merely posturing. Now I'd like to bring up another point. That is very crucial. The SEC will not be able to argue that XRP is not a security. Jeremy Hogan made this point plain in a film about a week ago. And Jeremy Hogan was claiming that the DC never actually brought up the issue that XRP is a security, and they try to hide it in papers. People like John Deaton clipped them here and there, but even if that wasn't true, if it didn't require Judge Torres to evaluate whether XRP was a security or not. So Judge Torres issued a ruling on this issue, and he stated unequivocally that XRP was not a security. What's interesting about this is that Judge Torres simply said that as a fact, and because she stated that as a fact, the SEC cannot truly contest it. I won't go into too much detail on the word for this, since it is a little beyond my knowledge. However, Jeremy Hogan did a nice video that explains this, which you watched about 2 videos ago. So basically, the SEC can appeal for more transactions that they want Ripple to register, but the argument that XRP itself is the security cannot be made. This was true with the Black Swan, as long as it's not an auction. Whatever the SEC says, I'm not interested. I'll make a pretty easy comparison. When the SEC first initiated this action, it appeared like they were suing Tesla and claiming that not only was what Tesla was doing illegal, but having a Tesla was also illegal. This is certainly a major issue, because if you want a Tesla, you probably don't care if Tesla is sued. But if they say your car is also illegal, you've got a big problem on your hands. It's no longer an option for the car to be the security, for the car to be illegal, for XRP to be illegal, or for there to be a security that isn't an auction. The SEC would be interested in Ripple's problems with the company, which isn't a big deal, for the sake of the XRP community's future. Overall, it appears that the SEC is just putting on a show right now, because they won't get much more out of this ruling even if they dispute it. They could tie up exchange sales, get Ripple to sell to exchanges, and acquire some more aspects of Ripple's business strategy, but it's so complicated. It is critical to understand that even if they win, Ripple may just appeal to the Second Circuit and then to the Supreme Court. Alternatively, the SEC would very surely lose. 6 of the SEC's last 7 Supreme Court cases have been dismissed. This is a perfect example of the government meddling in the private sector, and the Supreme Court is currently putting a stop to it, so I don't think the SEC will win in the long run. If they are lucky with a judge in the Second Circuit, they might obtain a minor victory, but that merely means the case will go to the Supreme Court, where the SEC would lose terribly and lose its power. Seriously constrained, I believe it would have made far more sense for the SEC to simply recommend an appeal as a method to reclaim a dough. Quan is utilizing the case to attempt to convince the judge that we are not guilty. Yes, assuming this is correct, we are still. Looking into it, we may appeal it in the future. Nevertheless, we will not use this at all. You can't use it since it's too fresh, and it's also. If you want, go to Ripple and say hello. Come to terms with us. You'll have to go above and beyond what Judge Torres did. What are we going to do to find a happy medium? We won't have to go to court because of this. In the end, whether the SEC appeals or not, it's evident that they're just putting on a show of power right now. And as I have stated, the Black Swan scenario is not even a possibility, so if the SEC does attempt to overturn this verdict, it wouldn't be the end of the world, in my opinion. XRP's universe. I believe it would be more like Ripple and the SEC squabbling over a few little deals. I'm still inclined to believe that it won't happen. I believe the SEC is simply spreading rumors about Toll. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm just relieved that the Black Swan event is no longer a possibility. Stuart Eldorado responded to this. Mentioned that he was talking to someone who still doesn't realize that the ticket isn't what security is like. Attempting to persuade a flat earther that the earth is round, and this is the most crucial point. Stuart Alderati, in all honesty, says that SEC will not be allowed to make up facts in their case against Ripple, nor will they be able to claim in court that the planet is truly flat when it is round. That's what they tried to do at the start of this case, but it was shot down by Judge Torres, thus it doesn't matter for Chiron. I'm a Ripple supporter and investor. Yes, I want Ripple to get out of this issue and stop dealing with the SEC, But in terms of XRP, it just won't mean much in the long run, and I don't think the SEC will gain much by trying to overturn this verdict. The biggest thing they do, I believe, is use the decision. They are considering it as leverage in other cases that are in settlement talks with Ripple, but that's as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, people, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and subscribe for more. It certainly means a lot.